So obviously this is our blind tasting, and I'm the host, the Witty Wino, and there's a bunch of blind people tasting. Perfect. Let's drink till we get blind. Here we go. So what you'll need, you get the kit, you have the 4 bottles of wine, right? You have your tasting mat. If you don't have that set up, I see it looks beautiful back there. What is set up? And then something to write with, whether that be a pen, pencil, crayon, burn stick, whatever you want to do. Similar wine glasses. I like similar glasses because the nose can change on wine. It can throw you off being more open or less open depending on the size and shape of the glass. So preferably if you have the same shape. If not, you're fine. Or if you want to use one glass and go slowly and make your guess, you can do that as well.
Okay.
Yep, you have the confidential envelope with the, okay, good, with all this stuff there. Don't look, don't cheat. We have the flavor chart here, which we can, that doesn't give too much away, but it does help you decide what's going on or what you're actually tasting. I didn't have this, but I actually have water, but sometimes crackers and nuts and things like that are really good to transition in between.
Okay.
I've done a lot of blind tasting judgments where I had to judge the wine, and it's pivotal to refresh your palate in between. And then the most important thing is an open mind. You need to have an open mind when you're blind tasting. Okay, so let's start tasting until we're blind. Here we go. So if you'll notice on your blind tasting sheet, and if you at home or anywhere else watching this haven't seen the sheet yet, we have little circles where you put the glasses, and then we have a line for aromas, a line for flavors, which I would encourage everyone to take notes while you're doing that. And then there's a section here that says, can you identify this wine? Now, if I just sent you 4 bottles and said, guess what these are, that's pretty hard. That's pretty hard. So we wanted to give you a little bit of guidance, especially since you're not in front of us. If you were here at the tasting room, we're thinking about having maybe a tasting board of options. This is really easy for you because you limit what your choices are. You'll see there's 8 choices and you only have 4 wines. So really 50% of what's on this paper is in your glass. Now it's just going to be if you can discern what those are. And then the last part of that is to select the AVA, which is the American viticultural area that this wine is. And that's even more hard, especially if you're not familiar with California AVAs, but I try to talk a little bit about them just to help guide our guests a bit. And then finally is retail price. That's if you had 2 points for the varietal, 2 points for the AVA, 1 point for retail price, that would get you 5 points for 4 wines, 20 points is the highest score.
Okay.
Okay, sound good? Let's go talk about the first one, which is Riesling. I'm sure you've heard about Riesling before. I should give a shout out. It's changed a little bit, but most of the stuff you're seeing is from Wine Folly. They're my favorite source for wine knowledge. They're so approachable, really good explanations, but they're not pretentious. So
yeah, this is really, really well done.
It is.
Isn't it beautiful? And this is, I would take stuff from there and I would change the sentences a little bit to make them my words, but for the most part, they nailed it. So why reinvent the wheel? I always want to give them credit because I love what they do. Madeline is a wonderful girl who started that. So if you don't know Riesling, it's always flavor and aroma intense. So this is a perfect way to say it. Even if it's really cold, you still have that aroma popping out of the wine. Oftentimes at white wine, it's so cold that you get a very muted aroma. Riesling almost always breaks that rule and you still get a nice powerful one. There's a lot of fruit aromas like orchard fruits, which we can call like stone fruits, nectarine, apricot, pear, apple. But besides that, I love these parts. You get the honeycomb, jasmine, or lime peel. And then for me, I always get that striking aroma. They always say petrol, I say plastic. Like if you had a fresh, I have a couple little girls at home, I'm gonna go buy them a pool today to blow up in the backyard. It's gonna smell like Riesling. Or I think it's Ian, who's on Som movies, he famously says, fresh can of tennis balls. I mean, it's such a plastic rubber type of note. That's a natural, man, I wish I wrote it down, a natural occurrence in the wine. It's a molecule that puts that off. But for me, that's that's how I always know it. What I would suggest too, I have 3 more of these slides. If you want to start smelling and tasting, you can see if any of these are matching there. I love how Wine Folly did this with the pale straw and the deep yellow. So Riesling can run a gamut of colors. Those are 2 of the most common. In California, almost a lot of them are leading towards that deep yellow. And then I have just a little bunch of what the grapes look like in case you wanted to educate yourselves. The next option we have is Chardonnay. Have you ever heard of the Chardonnay grape before? There's a couple of those out here. One of the most popular white wines in the world and California, of course. And this is just a nice simplified guesstimation, right? We have lemon, apple, pear, all those pretty little flavors. Other flavors that aren't fruit could be the apple blossoms, the lemon zest, citrus peel. I love the wet flint rocks, saline solution, that briny characteristic. And then you get into, I have here vanilla bean or baked tart, butter. Now you're getting oak quality, or more importantly, malolactic fermentation qualities. When you have white wine, all red wines do this, or at least most red wines do this, and some white wines like Chardonnay go through malolactic fermentation. In a barrel, they age in a barrel for a little bit. The malic acid turns to lactic acid. Lactic acid, of course, makes up lactose, which is that milky characteristic. So when you get creaminess or butter, oftentimes your wine has seen some oak. So if you feel like this could be oaked, maybe you are leaning towards the Chardonnay, maybe you're leaning towards, actually all four of them on here can see some oak, and depending on the climate. And then this is the acid. If there's medium low acid, it's probably a oaked and a warm climate. If it's medium high, it's probably unoaked and a cool climate. Now on to Viognier. This is a really special white wine. I can go through everything it says here. For me, this always screams of flowers. And I love the sentence they came up with. A Viognier is for those who love to stop and smell the flowers. It's so true. It's something to be appreciated, has a bigger body. You want to take your time with it, but also there's so many aromatic floral components. I almost always get these ones right when I smell Viognier from anywhere, because it just screams that type of nose to me. But it also can have the body and slight acid and creaminess that you could see in a Chardonnay. So that could throw you off as well. And then the last white wine here would be Sauv Blanc. That's our last choice. I love this slide. They have the gooseberry, honeydew, grapefruit, white peach, passion fruit. Those are all great descriptors. Sauvignon Blanc has a lot to do where it grows. It's very different in California than it is in France, than it is in New Zealand. So I'll give you a hint, this one's from California. So you're gonna have something pungent in the nose. And then I love this, the freshly cut grass, peas and asparagus. You can get all those green notes because there is xenoparacine in here. Or you can get the tropical and ripe passion or grapefruit notes. Usually there's moderate alcohol with really, best word ever is racy acidity.
I was going to ask about that. Racy acidity, I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, I loved that one. I kept that one because I say high acidity, but it's more than high acidity. It's like it's an excitement on the palate. And I love that. And then occasionally Sauvignon Blanc is aged in oak, but usually not for very long. And that's literally just because the acid can go so racy, the oak puts a couple little breaks on it and makes them slow down a bit. So now while we're here, before we go to the reds, why don't we just smell and look at these white wines? I like to do both. Your eyes are very important in wine tasting, just as much as your mouth and your nose. And then if we go with number one compared to number two, do you see a difference in thickness, color, viscosity? I'm using the white sheet of my paper here, and I have nice bright lighting right over me, so I get a good view. You have the perfect table for wine tasting back there too. That white table is fantastic.
Yes, number two is lighter.
I would say the same. Number two, a little lighter. Yep.
Lighter in color, and also just this. It seems lighter in general. Viscosity, I think lighter in viscosity too.
Okay. Let me go see if I can do this. I want to try to go back to those. We'll quickly shoot through these slides again. Let me go, I'll go forward. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so you can see some coloration here, right?
Right.
So number one, number one looks like it can be anywhere on that position. Number two looks like it's more towards that pale straw than deep yellow. But we know that that's also coming up. Chardonnay, maybe number one could be dark like a Chardonnay. Would be a lighter Chardonnay. That's an exceptionally yellow Chardonnay there too. I've seen them much lighter than that. That almost looks like Ecto Cooler juice or something there. Viognier, now both of these can have that color to me.
Yeah.
And you notice on I'm pointing to my slide, of course, but here it's called the meniscus. It's that rim where the wine meets the glass. That's the true color of the wine. When you look straight down, sometimes it's too dark. That's the true color of the wine. And I can see a little bit of that there. And then Sauvignon Blanc, we don't have a color picture, but it looks like white wine. So there you go. It's one of these two could easily be Sauvignon Blanc as well. But now what are we smelling? On number one, is there anything that pops out on the nose particularly to you?
Pear or peach. Fruity.
Yep.
Definitely fruity.
Definitely fruity. So nothing you say today could be wrong. If you said you smell shoe, I'd be like, okay, well, I don't know what kind of shoes you have, but why not? So your palate is right. I think that's very right what you said as far as peach, pear, those type of nice fruity, but not so much berry or grape necessarily, right?
Right. And it's very fresh smelling, fresh tasting.
Very fresh. It smells very clean. So sometimes that would lead me to think, man, this is probably less oaked than, say, a Viognier or Chardonnay, which can sometimes smell like you're going to have a bigger body. This one smells like it might be thin, but we're not going to know until we taste it. So I have a little spit bucket, dump bucket here. If you're at home tasting along, or you guys, there's no judgment here. I'm just working. So you do what you got to do.
Okay.
And honestly, when you're judging acid, it helps to swallow because alcohol and acid are going to affect you in two different ways. If you have high alcohol, that would be all the way down here in your chest. Medium alcohol is your esophagus, and low alcohol is kind of where your tongue ends. So that will help you judge the kind of where it grew, the process you use, that type of stuff too. How old the wine is. So a lot of fruit, right? A lot of fruit. There's some other notes though, as well, and I do get a really bright acid. A nice fun acid there.
And what would be good to eat with something like this? Does this be like a seafood, a good wine?
Yeah, that's probably one of the easiest things to pair this with is seafood. Although, ooh man, it's so hard not to tell you what it is when I talk about this.
Oh, okay.
No. You can pair this with a lot of different, yes, seafood, but you know what? It has that inherent semi-sweetness and a nice bright fruit acid that would go well with spicy food or smoky food as well.
Okay. So spicy, so I hadn't thought of that.
I think so. Some Japanese food, some Thai food. I think this can go really well with that.
Nice.
Okay, let's now compare the taste and smell of the number 2. Kind of similar on the stone fruit options you were saying, some peach there, but maybe I'm getting some tropical too, some grapefruit.
I was going to say tropical. You took that word
good.
right out of my mouth.
Good. Yeah, no, I don't want to lead you guys, so feel free to say it. You know, it's not, you're not wrong. I'm going to stop the share for a bit while we concentrate on this.
I think tropical is that's what I would thought of too.
I definitely get tropical. I got peach at first, and it's almost like an overripe peach, and then I got a straight shot of lime zest and grapefruit. Nice acid again, nice bright. I don't know if you feel how clean your mouth feels after this. When it has high acid, your saliva floods into your mouth to wash out, to change the pH. So you get that nice feeling of like, wow, I'm nice and satiated now. That was nice. AVA, let's talk quickly about that. It's going to be the same for all the wines, but Mendocino County, if you're not sure where that is, that's really high north, up in the redwoods, very rugged. If it's hot, it's hot. If it's cool, it's cool. There's really no hot and cold ones. Sonoma County is really hard because that is Dry Creek Valley all the way down to Carneros. That's quite a large spectrum with many AVAs in there. And then Sonoma County, if you're in Dry Creek, can have very, very hot days and hot nights. And down here in Carneros it's hot days, but very cool nights. So that could be this thin skin grapes of Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and then up in Dry Creek is Zinfandel, Cabernet, Malbec, the big thick-skinned grapes. And then Central Coast, again, is massive. Central Coast, but think of like Paso Robles, think of Santa Barbara area. If you're on the coast, it's Pinot. If you're inland, it's hot Zin, Malbec, Cab. A lot of stuff I'm throwing at you, I know.
I know. Do you have a favorite AVA? Do you have a favorite region?
It depends on the grape. But yeah, I'm really, really excited about what the northern part of Sonoma County can do. I love Napa. I really love Napa, especially because I'm more of a cab guy. So I love Napa cabs. But in Sonoma, there's a ton of great cabs that I didn't quite realize. So, and then you have to think, we haven't even talked about elevation. I mean, mountain farming compared to valley floor fruit is so different. That's another conversation we'll have another time. But and then quickly, if you're not familiar with our brand, I'll just give you a hint here. Our cheapest bottle, because retail price could be anywhere, but if you're not familiar with the pricing in Sonoma or our pricing, our cheapest bottle is 28 bucks. Our most expensive bottle is 90. And now we're going to go to our first red option is Pinot Noir. So again, hold both of these wines, start looking at the color, start thinking about what I'm saying as you're smelling. For instance, on a 3 and 4, I can get parts of cherry. Maybe I get more cranberry on one of the two, maybe raspberry on the other one. Then you get to the other flavors of vanilla, clove, licorice, mushroom. Those are going to be, I think, inherently in Pinot Noir, they're going to be secondary flavors. The most common for me is those red fruit, cranberry, cherry, raspberry. I do like they have down cola. So if you think of like flat Coca-Cola, you can have that smell in some of the Pinot Noirs. And the most important thing, I think, is medium to low tannin and medium to high acidity. That's going to separate thin-skinned Pinot Noir from the thicker-skinned Cab, Malbec, Zinfandels. Very thin, light coloring, and I have a regular watch on. I always see if I can look through this. Yeah, I can kind of see right there. And then if I look through here, oh, maybe it's a little darker. I'm not sure. But see-through is pretty good. But let's go on to the other options for red as well. Zinfandel, for instance. And there's a great color of Zinfandel. That's pretty true, that wine color on that slide. So you see raspberry, that's already a crossover, right? We had raspberry as a possibility in Pinot. We have raspberry as a certain possibility in Zinfandel. But if you look at the next ones, now we're getting into the dark world. Pinot Noir, Grenache, Sangiovese, those can be really red fruit driven. Zinfandel, Malbec, Cab Franc, Cab Sauv, those are all black and blue fruit. And that's what we're seeing here. Blueberries, black currant, black plum. And then the other flavors are important as well, because you have licorice, you have smoke, black pepper. Those are not as often ever in a Pinot Noir. Burnt sugar is a great one. If you think about when people go, oh, I taste caramel in here. Well, what is caramel? Caramel is burnt sugar. And if you think about it, we age these wines in cask, in barrels that are burnt from the inside. So we burn the wood sugars to create more flavoring on these wines. And then important is the medium high tannin and acid. So it has high acid and high tannin in Zinfandel. So it does grate on your mouth going down. It does dry your tongue, but the high acid does bring some fluid back in there. And if you haven't started tasting, please taste these wines. See if you're getting any of these notes. I do like that number 3 tastes pretty, or it feels very thin in my mouth. Kind of runs down like water.
Number 3 is definitely plum, cherry.
And number 4, already in the 2 that we just looked at, I'm getting more tannin than number 3, but that could be many different things. Different types of Cabernet have different tannins as well, depending on the winemaker or the aging process or the ripeness of the berries when they were picked. So it's not a foolproof plan, but we're starting to think along those lines. Let's move to the next one. I think it's Malbec. Yeah. And this is a great color too. Malbec almost always from either France, Argentina, or the States is pretty purple. The wine itself gets to purple more than maroon, brown, or red. And then back on these fruit notes, pomegranate, plum, raspberry, black cherry, blueberry, black, blue, you know? And then there's a lot of crossover with these big wines as far as cocoa, black pepper, molasses is another way of saying burnt sugar. Dill is pretty inherent to Malbec, though. I don't smell dill on too many other things. Maybe sometimes in a Cab Sauv, there's those green notes. And coconut. I do get some coconut on Malbecs typically. But again, medium acid, medium tannin, just like Zinfandel. The color is big for me, though. If it gets to purple, then I'm usually going to call a Malbec on a blind. And then last is the king, Cab Sauv, #1 planted grape in California. I think the world, too. I'm not sure. I know Pinot Noir is up there as well. But Cab is great for many reasons, my favorite wine. But I like that you can get the smells of green in there. They say green peppercorn, but you can also get bell pepper or just many different green notes, or we call it herbaceous or vegetal notes. I think too often we get the jammy qualities of cabs that are obviously black currant, blackberry, but tobacco leaves, mint, those things are really inherent in Cabernet as well. All right, so any questions on that? I think now it's time to guess. Write it down. I think you should write it down what you think it is. You should write down the AVA you think it is, and then write down the retail. Then we'll see what you how you did. Go back, smell them, taste them, see what you got to do.
AVA, that's hard.
That is really hard. I mean, I don't. That's pretty difficult, but we have to challenge you at some point.
Give us some hints. Do you have any hints about a good way to think about AVA?
Yeah, usually acid, right? Because cool climate, a little bit higher acid. And cool climates would be specifically, in our case here, Mendocino. Maybe if there was something from Carneros, whether that's a Chardonnay or Pinot that's on your plate, that could be a little bit more high acid. The color, I think the color and the shades of red and yellow, I'll say, would make me guess certain ways. Do you want to talk through them again, or you feel pretty confident?
I feel pretty confident.
Okay.
I got my sheet filled out.
Good, good, good.
I'm close.
Paul's still working on this, so I'll have some wine.
Okay, Paul, you take your time. No rush here, bud. What we'll do next, though, is I'm going to say, what do you think number one is? And you'll tell me your answers. Then you're going to open number one. Or what you could do, too, the problem with opening the confidential is you see all the answers right away. So when you get hosted by me, you might as well go step by step. If you were at home, had the kit by yourself, sure, open the kit. Or unveil the bottle, too. So what do you think number one was, Paul? Do you think it was, what do you think?
Okay. Riesling, Central Coast, 40.
Okay, Riesling, Central Coast, 40. And Lane, what do you think?
I was going to say Riesling, Sonoma County, 35.
30, you said 40 and you said 35 in Sonoma. And yours was, what'd you say? What was yours? Mendocino, you said? Oh, Central Coast.
Central Coast.
Okay, so let's open up number one. Oh, no, actually, let's go through all of them. Let's go through all of them. Then we'll open them. Okay, what was number two for you?
Okay. Sauvignon Blanc, Mendocino County, 30. And I graded these more in color than taste.
Yeah, okay.
Person. 1 and 4 had the best colors.
1 and 4 had the best colors. There's a lot of color there, yeah. All right, Lane, what do you think?
Okay, Sauvignon Blanc, Mendocino County, and 35.
Okay, I see a trend here. All right, number 3.
Pinot Noir, Sonoma County, 30.
30.
Okay.
Well, I know.
I'm guessing you said Pinot as well?
Pinot, Sonoma County, 48.
48. I love you. I'm going to have you price my wines from now on.
Pinot Noir is one of my favorites.
Okay, and what was number 4?
Zinfandel, Sonoma County, and 40. Once again, I think 1 and 4 had gorgeous color.
I agree with you.
And I said Zinfandel, Mendocino County, and 52.
Wow. All right, guys, let's look at number 1. That's pretty cool. And I have the results sheet right here.
Riesling.
Riesling. Now, did the bottle shape help you?
No.
Okay.
I like Riesling. I know, you know.
So you guys got it 100% correct.
Oh, you're kidding.
Except
Really?
the AVAs. We got to check the AVAs.
Okay.
But you got all the varietals. So you already have 8 points. That was a high score last time I did this with people. So that's pretty good.
That's interesting.
Now let's check. If you open up your confidential now, you can read the price points. And I mean, since you have it, you might as well use it, right? Let's get it confidential.
Should you choose to open it?
And I think you both on number 1 got the AVA wrong.
Wrong.
But that's okay. You were close with Sonoma because if you went north, it's just a little bit north of Sonoma. Okay. And then the price point, this is one of our most affordable white wines at $28.
Okay, so that's not cheaper.
And then number 2, you got that one right? Oh no, you said Mendo. Okay.
Wrong.
That is Sonoma County. That's Sonoma Coast. So that's nice cold weather. That might have thrown you off too. But the coast here gets very cold at night. It worked well there. The Pinot is Carneros. Oh, sorry. And the price point's 28. The Pinot is Carneros, but you're so close because it literally borders us in Sonoma County. It's just across the line in Napa. And that price is $42. You split the difference on that. And then you nailed the Zin, and who said Sonoma? I think Paul.
I did.
Yeah, Paul did.
Okay, and you said Mendo. So Paul, it looks like you're 1 point ahead Wayne, out of all that. And your price points, I know they weren't spot on, but they were pretty close. I mean, that Sauv Blanc at 28 and you're 30, or the Zin, and it's actually, this Zin here says 36, it's actually 38. We mistyped it. So you're very close at 40 and very close at 48 for the Pinot Noir. I mean, you guys know your stuff. You were right on there.
Your prices are really good.
Yeah, you know what? We're really lucky. We have basically some of our wines are Napa wines, but we're still in Sonoma, so we have Sonoma pricing. We can keep it really reasonable, and we also are lucky that we get grapes from many different places, so we don't have to gouge people on price. We just make what we think is fair, and we like to sell wine and like to share it, so we like to keep them down. And then also, man, if you're a wine club member, it's it's like really, really good pricing here. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. So maybe you could talk a little bit about being a wine club member. Can you?
Oh, I'd be honored to. Yeah, we have a couple different tiers. One's called the Highlands Club, and that is 4 bottles 3 times a year, and that's 20% discount. We just changed this. You get to customize everything you'd like. It used to be you got what the winemaker's decision was, which, you know, is always good wines, but you took what we offered. Now you can customize as long as you buy 4. You're good, 4 3 times a year. And then we have our Panorama group, which is 2 cases a year, 12 bottles October, 12 bottles in April, fully customizable, and that's 25%. But then we go a little crazy here, and any wine club member we have in the months of October, May, and February get 30% off any additional purchases. So people like this month, even though we've been closed, people are just stocking up on wine because it's the best sale of the year, and they know they're going into summer where we can't ship. They'll be coming out and enjoying their free tastings and stuff, but they're getting all their big purchases out of the way. And then of course we do free tastings for up to 4 people and 2 glasses of wine free. I think it's per month, or as long as you're not abusing it. Some people come in every day. If some people come in twice a month, you're still okay.
Well, that sounds great. Yeah, we actually, all 4 of these are really good wines. We're really impressed, and
Yeah.
probably become club members because your wines are great.
Oh, we'd be honored to have you as club members. We love our little family here. And with everything with the pandemic, we've obviously lost a couple people who were near and dear to us because they, financial situations or priorities are a little different now. So we'd love to get a little boost. And if anyone's interested, you can write to us and let us know. I should mention too, I know some people go, oh my God, I have 4 open bottles of wine. For me, not an issue. That's Tuesday. But for some people, they get a little nervous. Those 2 white wines will stay the rest of the week easy in the fridge. The Pinot Noir I would drink within the next 2 days, and the Zinfandel within 3 or 4.
Okay, that sounds great.
That big Zin on your counter with a little cork is going to be great. We have ours for 3 or 4 days here in the tasting room, so it only gets better, actually, that big bold wine for him. And I can't reiterate how different this will be if you come to the tasting room, because you'll have it all set up. You won't see any glasses. There won't be any bottles there. It's just going to be sitting there. And then also, if we did an all red flight, that would be really hard because Malbec, Zin, Cab Franc, those all could be the same wine depending on the style. And then our white wines, we have a Roussanne, a Viognier, a Chardonnay that all have the same body. And we have a French Colombard, a Riesling, and a Sauv Blanc that all the same body. So you could really throw each other off here when you start analyzing similar wines.
Well, this has been really fun. We'll definitely come visit you once we can travel.
Please. Well, before the whole pandemic thing set in, we were doing another event I created was called Tasting Room to You. And Tom and I, or just myself, or sometimes just Tom, travel around the country visiting wine club members and hosting different parties with them.
Oh,
so
cool.
It's something that's really fun. And actually, Arizona's been on our radar for a while. So yeah, it's a really fun thing. We've been to Louisiana, I've been to Florida a couple times. I'm from New York, so we go there all the time. He's in Seattle, Colorado.
Wow, that's great. Well, thank you.
Well, what a pleasure, friends.
Yes, it's been really fun. Definitely different. It's been great, really.
Very different, but you guys are stars. That was really well done.
On your website, it looks like you have 3 different versions of virtual tasting. You have virtual wine tasting, which looks like people can choose what they want and you help them.
Of course.
You have blind tasting at home, which the 4 bottles are pre-selected and then it's the blind tasting.
Yes.
And then it sounded really interesting, and you must be doing well with this, a perfect blend at home where you put together a 750 ml perfect blend.
We actually haven't rolled that out yet. So that is something that we have had such a tremendous amount of success here at the tasting room. We've never done it virtually yet, but stay tuned. It's literally just about compiling the kits and making sure they're nice and shippable and there's a lot of explanation, or of course hosted by myself. And that should be soon, but we've had a lot of...
Did you come up with the blind tasting, this whole concept with the blind tasting?
My marketing director and I have been wanting to do this I started working here 3 years ago, and it was something I always wanted to do. But with the pressure of having so much going on in the tasting room, we never got to execute virtual. Well, March 17th happens, and all of a sudden now it's like, guess what? So this has been, I treat this instead of a detriment, this has been a really great experiment.
Oh, sure.
Because obviously tons of business lost. We've had to have some employees take some time. It's been not great. However, we've connected with more people around the country.
Yes.
We've had some of these, I think our first virtual call on a Friday night had 70 people watching it. That might be all I see an entire weekend here. So there's something to be said for this that I hope to continue, even as the trend of opening returns. I'd like to keep some part of this. I'm not from California, so I would be missing out on the tasting room experience if I didn't have something virtual there. So we wanted to keep this going even past all this. Here you mentioned, and I don't know that we released this yet, we did secretly on the call Friday, is we're going to have 3 tasting kit choices for blind. All white, which is really hard, all red, which is really hard, or mixed, which is a little easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the difference for you two, or anyone doing this virtually, you get the bottles yourself. So if you know anything about bottle shape, you can kind of you use all your visual cues to get to these decisions, right? If you walked in the door, you would have 4 glasses in front of you that you had no idea what was in it. That's going to be even harder than you pouring it yourself and not peeking.
Yeah, I could see that, definitely. Do you have any more questions?
Actually, it looked like the other thing they're doing is vertical wine tasting virtually.
That's the one I was going to bring up that I'm so excited about. If you don't know much about Meadowcroft, anyone who's watching this or you two in general, Tom Meadowcroft is our owner. He started making wine years ago, but bought a vineyard on Mount Veeder in 1999 and planted in Mount Veeder, if you don't know, is a great AVA, American viticultural area for Cabernet Sauvignon. So he planted Cabernet Sauvignon up there in 99. His first vintage was 2004. And his second vintage in 2005 won Best 100 Wines in the World, was one of the best 100 wines in the world from Wine Enthusiast, I believe. So that kind of put him on the map. And he's been making it ever since, that wine. And then we obviously add it to our portfolio because we don't do just that. But that is our only estate wine. And on next Friday, I think that's the 6th of June, we're going to taste through 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 with Tom Meadowcroft, talking about each particular vintage, why it was special, how is the wine holding up? Because some of these wines are 14 years old, which is not always common. And some of these wines, we're selling them for the experience, but in some cases I have 17 bottles left. You know what I mean? It's like, this is the last in the world of these wonderful wines, and we just want to share it. We did it once on premises when I first started in our beautiful barn on property. We hosted one, and it was fantastic. And this would be a greater audience. And while, you know, we have a packaged all 5 for $500, which seems like, wow, what a bunch of money. But you got to think every bottle is either 125 or 150. So it's actually a discount. But then also there's many people who have been collecting Mount Veeder through the years. And maybe on the bottom of their shelf, they have one random 2008 that they've been looking for a reason to open. Well, this is the reason to open it. You should try it with us.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds great. It sounds like you have a lot of interesting things coming up.
Yeah.
Events. Yeah, that's good.
And for that tasting, there'll be 2 of you doing it, 2 of you together.
At least. We may have some other employees who've been long-term employees here call in and Zoom. Typically, I've been hosting it myself only because Tom was not around when we first started doing these virtuals. I think he's going to be back in town in this area for these ones. And whether he's next to me or calling in, he wants to be involved in this one. We are in a little shared space here, our tasting room. So we are essentially it's a wine bar, right? Where there's vineyards and there's some facility in the back, but we don't make any of the wine here. We just sell it, but we are one of the many businesses of Cornerstone, Sonoma. If it's about, I can't remember the acreage, but there's a whole bunch of gardens in back And each garden has little tiny sitting spaces and places to reflect and picnic tables. And then we are one winery here. There's other wineries, there's other retail spaces, and there was a restaurant that, you know, was going through rent. We don't know who's here now, they're staying or someone else is coming. We have a restaurant on property too. So it's a wonderful place to spend, I mean, sometimes an entire day. You can really spend a lot of time here.